Hello and welcome to the first part of the 1955 Light Sport Kit Car competition thing. I'm sorry that this has taken so long. I've been ill and not really sort of feeling well enough to make videos, so yeah, apologies. Anyway, let's just get on. So, our first car is by Red, the Gauntlet Wyvern 1800cc. I wonder how big the engine is. Visually, it looks really cool actually. I really like the creative use of overlapping the vents to make the grille there. That's quite neat, and yeah, some nice little details around it. I quite like the hinges and the fuel cap there. Yeah, it's all very nicely done, that badge especially, and the single reverse light. This is all very cool. Yeah, definitely a big fan of the way this looks and that. Yeah, it's all very nicely done. Yeah, this will do well in the styling for sure. But let's take a look at it mechanically. It's fiberglass panelled space frame with steel chassis. Makes sense. And double wishbone front and rear. That's interesting. Lots of negative quality. It seems to get it down into the limits, which is fair enough. I put those limits in to try and force people to make compromises. Nah, people are just negative quality everywhere. And oh no, what is this engine? Peak power at redline because the internals can't take it because it's quite a high bore engine, or high stroke engine. Sorry. Yeah, it's even higher than the game defaults to. It is 1800cc overhead cam 2 valve, so it can take the revs on the valve train. So yeah, it is entirely on the well, especially with that low bore. Yeah, it is just entirely on the pistons and conrods, not taking the power. It's a shame because power at or peak power at the RPM or redline, it means that the car's kind of dreadful to drive. +1 quality there. I mean, especially here where sort of power matters. Well, so you've got less power, so you really need to make the most of it. Yeah. Otherwise, this engine, I mean, there's a weird mix of quality here and there to try and keep it under limits, I assume. DCOE carbs, fair enough, and performance intake. Kind of conservative fuel mixture. I mean, I didn't really put anything in the rules to stop people just maxing that out, so yeah, and a single baffled muffler on -5 quality. Interesting. Yeah, odd engine choices, lots of negative quality there, and rear-wheel drive manual 4-speed, and yeah, you can see here it's going to about 100 horsepower to the wheels and then down to 50. So your power halves after every single gear change, which is just painful to drive. Well, okay, it gets a bit better here, but yeah, that's I think this may struggle and may be a bit difficult to drive fast. But it is at least good handling, so yeah, maybe if I can keep it in high speeds, it won't be such an issue. Still, yeah, I should probably actually go through these. 50 meters braking distance, 900 kilograms, so yeah, with some fairly wide tyres. Yeah, it does stop pretty well, fairly standard braking setup. I kind of expect everything to have this fairly aggressive brake setup. Sport and then none, that's an interesting combination there. And then +3 quality. You could probably save more weight just by going basic and basic with similar comfort levels and lower PU, so that's an interesting choice. Oh yeah, negative quality on aerodynamics, which is fair enough. That's a really easy way to lower PU, and you know, since acceleration is still fairly important for a car like this, you will be running decently short gears at least. So yeah, you know, I mean, while I'm scoring top end, you can kind of afford to not totally maximise for it. Safety is just good enough to make the minimums, and suspension fairly sporty. Well, kind of soft actually. It's weirdly soft on the rear compared to the front, but yeah, whatever works. So this is interesting. We'll have to see how this does. I have a feeling it's going to be let down by that engine, but we will see. Next, we have the Wentworth Womble by High Octane Love, which, yeah, we're going to get lots of British Racing Green cars, aren't we? I should have seen this coming, but yeah, it uses the 1940s body, actually 1940s chassis and engine. Interesting. Yeah, so it's been updated a bit. I assume they just had a car lying around and wanted to reuse it, which is fair enough. It does look fairly basic, probably a bit more like a traditional kit car, but in that it's sort of way less fancy looking, but I don't know, it looks alright. A bit frog-eyed sprite at the front, I think. Maybe. It gives me that kind of vibe, even though it doesn't really look like a frog-eyed sprite. But yeah, there is some nice things there. I do quite like that stripe, although it does look a bit odd the way it disconnects to the vents there. But yeah, overall, looks quite good. And underneath it is steel, ladder chassis and steel, because 1946. Double wishbone, then solid axle coil on the rear, so some points for realism there probably. The engine is 54 horsepower, pushrod inline 4, 1.3 litres. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's certainly not the most powerful of engines. It probably will be the least powerful here. A very low cam profile actually. That's weirdly low, especially since the engine can afford to rev a lot higher. And yeah, a bit of leftover octane, which is maybe a bit strange, but definitely a lot cheaper built and a lot more affordable. Overall, yeah, fairly standard setup overall. Overall. Yeah, just keep repeating yourself. No, but it's you know, it's nothing outstanding. It's fairly average. Maybe could be a bit more aggressive. I have a feeling it's severely undertuned for this, to be honest. But yeah, 22 seconds to 60. Yep, definitely undertuned. Could probably benefit from another 30 horsepower at least. It's not even that light at 924 kilograms. That's 24 kilograms heavier than the last one we had, which considering it's got way less power and solid axle suspension, this may struggle a bit, but yeah, some very long gearing, lots of overdrive. I have a feeling that's not going to help at all. Sports compound, but crossplay, again some realism, but not sure if that will really help it if it's this slow. Then yeah, staggered setup, which is a little odd for a car like this, because well, especially if you're trying to cheapen it as much as possible, you'd want to run the same setup front and rear to keep the price low, as that decreases the cost quite a lot. Brakes are well, it doesn't stop nearly as good as the last car, 10 meters more, which yeah, that's going to add up over the course of the lap. I have a feeling this won't perform too strongly, but we'll see. Then yeah, a bit of extra cooling airflow, fair enough, increased reliability a bit, although it is way over, and then basic none with +4 quality. Interesting. That may be part of the weight. Well, probably not, but yeah, and then definitely not maximised for this competition, which is fair enough. But yeah, standard 50s with little to no, well, nothing else really. There, then progressive twin tube and passive with well, bit of front cam, but no sway bars. Interesting. Definitely, yeah, almost certainly going to score well in realism, but I doubt it'll do so hot anywhere else. On to the next car then. So next from El Bruno is the Marquez DSR Boxer 4. I wonder what engine this has. Yeah, it's I do quite like the way it looks. The indicators on top of the light, that's quite a neat idea. I do quite like that. And yellow fog lights are my weakness, so yes to that. And single mirror, which is quite a neat touch. Yeah, rear's maybe a bit empty, but you look at cars from the time, they didn't really have much there. But yeah, even so, maybe having a little extra something there wouldn't have hurt. Still, let's take a look at it, and from the warning list, I have some concerns about how this does. But at least it scores well, so we'll see. Going through it then, aluminium with a ladder chassis, steel, and double wishbones front and rear. You can get away with double wishbones front and rear with a ladder chassis, but obviously that's a fair bit heavier than using a space frame, although it doesn't seem to have been too much of a disadvantage here. Yeah, even adding a bit of quality into it, which is interesting. Boxer 4 then, with 1.7 litre Boxer 4 with direct acting overhead cam. Fair enough, and aluminium head, so reliability is very low. Yeah, very low reliability, but the engine's light at least, and you do kind of need to reduce weight as much as possible with boxers because they are so heavy. Lots of quality then throughout, but it does stay in the limit, so yeah, fair enough. Yeah, 66 cam profile, 8.5 to 1 compression, which is fairly aggressive. Still some leftover octane though, you could increase the compression a bit more. So, interesting. Single barrel twin carb with a performance intake, which is again an interesting choice, with a very rich fuel mixture. In fact, the engine is running too rich apparently, so yeah, usually you want to put it to just one mark below, so 13.2 in this case for single barrel carbs. So yeah, that does, I mean obviously it frees out some octane, but it does actually lose you a bit of performance. So interesting there. But tubular headers, and then none. Fair enough. And then exhaust is slightly restricting it, which is odd considering if we go back here, yeah, the comfort is well over, so you could have squeezed a bit more power and still been fine in the limit. I have a feeling there was potentially some min-maxing to the stats going on here, which I don't take into account at all, because that kind of ruins the fun for it, in my opinion. Front wheel drive, that's an interesting choice, with a 3-speed manual, okay, and yeah, that may be a bit awkward to drive. Hopefully it's got enough power for it, but yeah, those are some fairly long gears. There was a reason why quite a lot of cars during the 40s and 50s used 4-speed transmission, even basic cars. So yeah, 155 radial tyres, that's worryingly narrow. Is it limited? No, it's got offset and there's room for more. It's just because they're so low profile. Probably making the wheels big enough for the brakes to try and stop it. Yeah. Interesting. And as a result, it stops in 43.2 meters, which is insane for the time. Like that sort of modern car braking standards in 1955. So yeah, that's not bad. And then standard none interior, 2 seats with a tiny bit of quality. Lots of quality here. I'd imagine that's... I think that would explain why the production units are so high. Like, even though it's got double wishbone front and rear, it shouldn't be that high with a ladder chassis. So yeah, fairly high there. Standard 50s in safety, fair enough. And then yeah, all your basic stuff there with lots of camber. So in theory, it should corner decently. Hopefully, maybe. It is quite light, has decent engine. I am wondering if that transmission may let it down a bit though. We'll see. Overall could be a strong contender, but I really don't know until I get properly comparing. Next from Echo Waffle 8 with the AKR Kits hashtag 6 numbers. So, well, looks interesting using the older body as a convertible, which does add a bit of weight, but yeah, quite a lot of weight, as you can see. That 165 horsepower from a very low revving engine. This will be interesting then. Yeah, I do quite like the way it looks. That's quite nice, actually, having the strip between the fuel filler cap and the badge. Twin exhausts that would probably heat up the tyres a bit. We'll call that advanced tyre warming features or something. I don't know. That'll be a bit interesting with the dynamic exhausts coming in the next content update. Although the chassis-wise, it's steel ladder steel, which is interesting, and then double wishbone solid axle coil. So your very traditional sports car. Well, I mean, they probably would have used more fiberglass and stuff, but and aluminium, since it's easier to do that in a shed. But still, 165 horsepower from a 4-litre V8, made of cast, very heavy engine. And oh, it's a flat plane, so yeah, you get your fancy inline 4 cranks. Still could have made a bit more power. I have a feeling valve float was really the limiting factor here. Running fairly lean, I guess, for this. Triple carbs, that's pretty cool. And yeah, again, tubular and then a single baffled. Dual exhaust though, so I guess they aren't for show on the back of it. So that's all good. Transmission wise, it's got a 4-speed, quite a lot of wheel spin. Actually, yeah, it's all in first gear. Interesting. And goes on to almost 200 kilometers an hour, which is yeah, well, that's very quick for the time. Like, no, it wouldn't have been the fastest car in the world at the time, but yeah, it would have been pushing for it, I think. Yeah, that's quite good then. Again, a staggered setup with radial sports tyres. That's quite interesting. You could probably afford to bounce them out and save that bit of money and just sort of do it with camber. Put some positive camber on the front or something. I guess you kind of can't really with that would be a terrible idea, actually. Yeah. Brakes, don't want to stop this thing at all because it weighs so much and yeah, has that big heavy engine over the front wheels. Interior, well, it's fairly standard, sort of what I expected from everyone. No safety. Well, with an engine that big, you're not likely to be hurt in a crash. Then the suspension is exactly the same front and rear except for the camber, because that can't be changed. Solid axle, obviously. Yeah, overall, well, this is a very different thing to what we've had so far. Maybe pushing the boundaries of what light sport really means, but maybe it'll be fun to drive in Beam. Maybe it'll be absolutely undrivable. Who knows? Next, from El Menduco, we have the Vermin Maisie kit car. And this thing looks quite cool. I quite like this stripe going along, or the chrome strip going across the entire car. That's a very nice feature. Yeah, overall I do quite like that. Yeah, stripes and yellow fog lights, those are my weaknesses. Let's take a look though. Fiberglass space frame chassis, and then independent suspension all around, but no double wishbone front and rear. So yeah, it does just about fit in the limits without being too excessive. And under the bonnet it has a 2.1 litre 60-degree V8, interesting, with direct acting overhead cam. Yeah, I'd imagine if you pushed it up any higher, you'd probably get warnings. No, surprisingly. Yeah, well, I guess at that point, you're just pushing it further than it can really take. The valves, at that point then, you're just so over-revved, there's no point. Yeah. So, yeah, fairly sporty cam profile, DCOE twin carbs with a race intake, so That explains the really low reliability. Regular leaded, and oh, it's scoring in super. That's impressive. Tubular headers, single, and then baffled muffler, as we've seen with everything else. Then under or inside is rear-wheel drive, manual, 4-speed, as expected. Top speed of 122 miles an hour, fairly similar to the last car actually. Very high performance, very quick accelerating. I didn't actually check what the last one was, but yeah, 7.6 is pretty good, especially for the time, although it is very light. So yeah, and equal tyres front and rear, radial sport compound, that's to be expected. Bit of quality in it, bit of quality everywhere actually. Here in the brakes to try and get it stopped, and it will just about get stopped. Well, lock up the rear wheels, and in just over 40 meters. That's very impressive. Then low cooling airflow, fair enough. Sport, and then none, and then low quality, and very low safety, just meeting the minimum. Probably try to save as much weight as possible there. And then, yeah, quite a lot of camber. I'm worried about how this is going to drive in beam, as that's very oversteery. Yeah, everything over that red line is oversteer. So, yeah, and this is off throttle, so if I'm flooring it around a turn, it may just go around in a circle. We'll see. Actually, yeah, looking at the way it is, there's probably quite a lot of weight over the rear. Could check that, actually. Yeah, no, it is still very front heavy. Probably because of that massive engine. Well, massive, it's 2 litre. But yeah, anyway, this could be a strong contender. It, on paper, looks very good, but in beam it may struggle a bit. So we'll see. Next, from Flip 7144 with KLM Sparrow, which looks interesting, we'll say. It looks kind of a bit more like a resto mod car to me. I don't think those square lights or even the exhaust really fit with the kind of things you'd see back in this time period. Nor would the oval lights really, but yeah, I'm willing to overlook that. But yeah, it, don't know, I don't think it really looks that 50s to me, but maybe it's good performing. Let's take a look at the chassis first of all. Fiberglass ladder. So yeah, double wishbone front and rear. So it should, in theory, be fairly light, and yeah, that's extremely light. And good handling probably with double wishbones and a weight that low, and the brakes stop it. So wow, this could be good. Direct acting overhead cam, very small inline 6. I think those boxes are slightly yellow, so I think it is very slightly being over-revved. 66 cam profile, and then 8.8 to 1 compression, so it's fairly sporty. I'd imagine it's, yeah, to DCOE carbs, performance intake. How's reliability so low then with any performance intake? It is, well, being slightly over-revved from it. It is a bit annoying that it does that, I assume, because the way it ranges the figures it shows. But yeah, it is running slightly too rich now, apparently not. Although usually you do get a bit more performance by running slightly under. I don't know, maybe not in this case. Long tubular headers, kind of surprised I haven't seen any of those yet. And it does just about fit in with the rules at minus 15 quality. You kind of wonder at that point if it's really worth it, but exhaust isn't suffocating it, so yeah, minus 7 on body quality. Probably part of the reason the weight's so low. Full speed manual. Top speed of almost 111 miles an hour, so it's got a decent bit of go to it, probably because it's just so light. 9.1 seconds to 60, so pretty good. Apparently pulls 1G on 1775s, yeah, 175 cross-ply sports. Fair enough. At +5 quality though, so they don't come cheap. And then very aggressive brakes, but it does stop so quickly. This could be very nice to drive in beam. Potentially, yeah, that handling graph is ever so slightly understeer all the way through, which could be good. A single seat, again, kind of surprised I haven't seen one of these. Yeah, this could be onto a very good car to drive in beam. I'm not sure about stats. Lots of camber. That worries me, as that could mean, well, as we can see here, it is just oversteer on it all the way through low speed turns, which yeah, well, I'll have to be awake when I drive it, that's for sure. Overall, potentially a strong contender, if it is easy to drive, but yeah, because those stats are really good for a car of this era. Doesn't look the best, but if it goes better than it looks, then it'll be fine. Next we have Kulki with the Absolute Sparta. This looks quite cool. I do quite like these stripes going across the entire body, and I really hope it's mid-engine. Oh, semi-trailing arm. It's not then. Nope, front longitudinal. Yeah, it's that's a shame then. I was hoping for a mid-engined or rear-engined entry to shake things up a bit. But yeah, this is a very cool looking thing. I quite like the circle around the badge and everything. That's really nice actually. Convertible, so it will be a bit heavier, but yeah, could definitely score some style points, that's for sure. So underneath then, fiberglass panelled space frame with yeah, independent suspension all around. Then a 1.4 litre inline 4 overhead cam 2 valve with 65 cam profiles. Yeah, fairly aggressive setup with race intakes. Interesting. Should be well, will be loud, that's for sure. Yeah, no mufflers on a race intake. This thing is under 70 light. How? That's I don't understand how that. How? Whatever. They'll sound good, hopefully. No negative quality there. But yeah, looked like a strong engine. And yeah, potentially some good gear ratios. I don't know. We'll see. A little bit of wheel spin there. Sports compound, fairly narrow tyres, and yeah, they are limited by the size of them. Yeah, this body does limit tyre diameter a bit. I mean, otherwise it just sort of clips through the wheel covers, which can be a bit annoying. So we'll have to see when those tyres are actually wide enough for this. I mean, in theory it handles decently. Bit of oversteer though when it does go into understeer at a high speed fairly easily, but we'll see. Then braking wise, yeah, it's a fairly standard setup and does stop again very good, which is surprising. And yeah, standard none entertainment interior, just about meeting that comfort minimum with 2 seats, and suspension fairly standard. Actually quite soft, with quite a lot of camber and much stiffer rear sway bar, so that'll be interesting to see how that handles in beam. I do have some concerns based on that graph about it being kind of oversteery and then just suddenly going into understeer, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be good, because oh, someone's finally using the large variants of these bodies, the long wheelbase ones. This is Huge Heinous with the Conant Weasel. Well, the Conant Weasel, I guess. Kind of messed up the naming. Whatever. Anyway, fiberglass ladder, steel, all very cheap materials. Well, fiberglass is actually kind of expensive. Usually adds about £2,000 onto the final price of a car. But yeah, double wishbone and solid axle leaf is very American muscle car. I have a feeling this is going to be much more into the American way of doing it. 4 litre inline 6 with 205 horsepower. Oh no. Sorry, 3.9 litre, not 4 litre. Kind of aggressive, well, not really, kind of sporty cam profile. DCOE curbs, performance intake, fairly rich fuel mix, baffled, and then none. Yep, all your standard stuff. Very heavy, was that 234 kilograms? That's quite a heavy engine, and very peaky gear ratios, and does appear to be gear limited at least. It does, the game reckons it can get it to 140. I suppose at that point though, the cost just gets so extreme that you can't really afford to. Yeah, which is, yeah, it's kind of a shame that price limits top speed so much, but it's understandable. Realism. Semi-slick tyres, and even then, it still wheel spins quite a lot because of that 200 horsepower. Staggered setup. It is slightly oversteering, but I don't know, could handle well. Brakes, very high quality, but do just about, now, don't quite lock up the wheels even at high speed, but yeah, there have been worse. High speed oversteer, so this thing is going to be a nightmare to drive at high speed. Just understeering, then it'll just spin, which is concerning. And lots of brake flow for some reason. That's just extra drag, to be honest. I don't get it. I don't think the brakes are really that prone to fade anyway when they're so big. Then, yeah, where was that? Yeah, standard basic at -3, still way over the comfort minimum. Standard 40s at -3, and there's still a bit of wiggle room there. Loads of front camber. That would explain the high speed oversteer. Yeah, because it's all on the front. Meanwhile, the back tyres struggle to grip when turning. Yeah, very lots of use of quality throughout this car, which would explain the 13,000 price tag, or 26,000 as a final cost. Yeah, that's an awful lot. So overall, this is a bit of an oddball. Very powerful, probably going to be very hard to drive, but it could, if it's kind of controllable in any way, if I can sort of point it in the right direction around a track, it should be very fast. Stats wise, well, doesn't look like anything outstanding, but we'll see. Next from the Maldonado, the, oh god, this is going to, Italian words. I'm not even going to make an attempt. How do you pronounce it? That's an S and an F right together. I live in Wales, and even then I'm shocked by that. How? Like, those aren't letters that should go next to each other. Anyway, visually, yeah, it's quite a good looking car. I do quite like that stripe there. And the mirrors, the way they integrate into the stripes. Very nice. Yeah, it looks nicely done. I do quite like the way it looks. Underneath, aluminium, ladder chassis, galvanized steel, front longitudinal with a solid axle coil. Fair enough. Then a fairly big inline 6, 2.8 litres, 163 horsepower, direct acting overhead cam, so yeah, it is quite happy to rev high. Then, yeah, then a fairly sporty cam profile. Surprise, surprise, DCOE carbs. and it's running rich. Oh, well, as rich as possible. Long tubular and then a single baffle muffler. Probably to make it just about meet the minimum. Nope, it's way over. And the fastest car I think we've had so far. I think, maybe. I don't know. I haven't really been keeping track, but it's fine. Radial tyres, sports compound, 195s all around, with some fairly big wheels. So the brakes aren't really large enough to take advantage of those massive wheels, and it stops in 84 meters. Oh no, I'm going to crash this a lot, aren't I? On the bright side, I've got no worries about locking up the wheels in this challenge, so yeah, that'll be nice for once. Well, yeah, it's such a heavy car. Yeah, 1,150 kilograms, so those tiny brakes are undersized at least, just don't get it stopped. And premium standard AM radio and 5 seats. Very odd choices there. And then, yeah, fairly stiff suspension. Yeah, this could be interesting. It's fairly quick in a straight line, but it's just so heavy and just doesn't get stopped. I worry about how this car will perform. Although, yeah, handling is oversteering. Never mind. Yeah, this could potentially be a bit of a death trap, but we'll see. Next from T-Peso T. I think I'm pronouncing that right, if not, well. The Ignis LSR 4x4. So it's got a 4x4 yes. 4x4 drivetrain, which is, well, it's scoring 1 in realism no matter what, because that's just not a thing that was really possible back in this time. The transfer cases really couldn't last being used constantly, but I mean, it is kind of abusable in Beam right now, so yeah. I'm not going to stop you, but yeah. Anyway, visually, I mean, it looks quite cool. I do quite like these stripes there on the back. It looks fairly good. Those twin pipes do look quite nice, and that vent leading into the V8 badge, quite nice. Grille doesn't really work in my opinion. It doesn't look that sort of 50s the way it's sort of indented. But you know, otherwise the lights and the indicators and that little lip there looks alright. So anyway, underneath, fiberglass with ladder chassis, double wishbone, standard stuff by now. The engine is a 2.5 litre V8 with direct acting overhead cam. Fair enough. Oh, it's a flat plane too. Cool. And fairly low cam profile. And some leftover octane there that could be used up. Triple carburetor, performance intake, regular leaded, and yeah, running very rich. Well, as rich as possible. I keep saying very rich when, yeah, that's a limit. But yeah, it's a fairly standard thing. Then top speed of 118 miles an hour, fair enough. Gearing, well, we'll have to see how that does in Beam. Very good handling apparently. It's on semi-slicks, that would explain it, and it is very light, so should be fun to drive for sure. Drum brakes then, well, yeah, max size drums though, with very aggressive pads. Although, yeah, those front brakes aren't really. I kind of feel like the difference would being higher would help. I'm not sure though. Maybe that does bring the stopping distance down as much as possible. 2 seats in standard none, and yeah, over the comfort minimum and the safety by quite a lot actually. And then handling wise, fairly standard suspension, lots of camber though, and yeah, possibly a bit oversteering, but we'll see. could be quite fun to drive. I mean, it's semi-slick tyres, really light, and lots of camber, so it could be quite nice handling. Or it could be a death trap that's uncontrollable. We'll see. Next from Boola 101, we have the Cobra SS, which is, yeah, it looks sad. Also very wide, and those are some huge wheels on it. Yeah, this will be interesting for sure. Visually, it looks alright, except for that grille doesn't work at all for me. But yeah, and it does look very wide, and yeah, maybe less light sports car, more sort of prototype race car for the time, especially with those wheels. But I don't know, it kind of works. Chassis wise, steel, ladder steel, all very basic stuff. Solid axle coil. The engine is a 3.3 litre inline 6 with 3 valves per cylinder for once, and the pistons are dying towards the top end. Nice, very aggressive cam profile. A bit of leftover octane that could have been used there, and DCOE carbs. Big surprise there. Fairly aggressive fuel mixture and ignition timing. Then long tubular and 2 reverse flows. Interesting, and because of that the exhaust is limiting. Shame. Probably could have gone much more power out of it. Top speed of 128 miles an hour. That's pretty good. It is quite heavy though, at 1,200 kilograms. Yeah, despite the power though, not too much wheel spin. And it's front wheel drive, which makes that even more impressive. Radial, I know it's sports compound with wider front tyres than rear. I have a feeling this will be fairly nice to drive. Because of those, well, low profile 17-inch tyres. And yeah, and the fact that it's well, front wheel drive, naturally understeery, with smaller rear tyres, so it should maybe have some good turning. I don't know, we'll see. The brakes can almost stop it, or almost lock up the wheels, I should say. And they are massive and incredibly aggressive with quite a lot of quality on it. There is some high speed oversteer. Maybe a rear wing or some rear camber would have helped, but can't do that with a solid axle. Then sport and basic radio. Very low production units actually, which is quite good, especially considering the amount of quality. Well, yeah, on the brakes, that's where it was. But yeah, and then well, lots of negative quality on safety to make it just about meet that 8 minimum. Fairly stiff springs, but dampers are kind of soft with fairly soft sway, well, kind of stiff sway bars, I guess, really. But yeah, there we go. We've had an interesting selection of things. I kind of hope the rules encouraged a bit of variety there. There were 2 disqualifications that I've just edited out. Sorry to Micomp 7 and I can't pronounce your name, Zeno. Yeah, I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry. Yeah, Micomp had a monocoque chassis and Zeno. Yeah, I'm just going to john it to that. Had an engine from 1960. So yeah, that's kind of the disadvantage with me reviewing these blind. I may change up the formula for the next challenge. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you've enjoyed. And yeah, until next video, goodbye.